Okay, today's video we're talking about wholesale businesses. How can I start and run a wholesale business, specifically by advertising that business on Google Ads or PPC, using Google PPC ads, finding all the customers / clients you want can be done through Google Ads. I've seen this done quite a few times now. It's wide open for anybody who wants to do this, and for pretty much all niches. I see some Chinese suppliers trying to do this a bit horribly. What they are doing, they're not doing it right. If they did it right, they would be able to start cutting some U.S. U.S. people that are doing it out, but respectively, you have an edge as a distributor of what you sell being in the U.S. There definitely is a need for it. The people don't want to go directly to AliExpress or Alibaba all the time. There's a number of different reasons why, which I'm going to go through on this video. I'm also making this video because I knew some other people doing some research were interested in doing a wholesale business. How do you actually do that? So it's not rocket science. You got to get a hold of product. You got to know who buys the product, and you can go directly to them, of course. You specialize in a niche so you can become understanding of what the market wants in terms of being able to advise them one product over another. So you'll be in one niche like just laptop batteries, or just selling a certain kind of paint, or just storm shutters, which those are all spaces that I've seen already work. And you're going to provide the supplies in bulk. Better than retail, and if you ask me, if I had to do it, I would consider doing this almost over retail, because the orders are massive, and respectively, you generally speaking dealing with somebody who understands what to expect versus the end customer. I hear all the time from different customers who are doing regular e-commerce to end consumers. They get a lot of crazy customers. So there's a number of different reasons why these businesses are good too, and they are quite profitable. However, you could simply take, you could buy stuff from Amazon or Alibaba, mark it up 10% or so, and sell it onto the people who retail it online. Or of course they could be offline sellers, that's totally fine. But the key thing is here, people are looking for these middleman wholesalers, i.e. you, on Google, and all you got to do is just tap in using this one key PPC strategy here, and you'll basically have all the customers you want. If you're not anymore, if that's all you did, I still recommend making a hit list of all the people who should buy your product, and sending them letters in the mail and sending them emails. But even before that, if you're lazy, just run some Google search ads that cost basically no money. You'll spend way more money just buying the product than you will advertising, because there's so few people doing this that you'll be able to get started regardless of how much money you have to advertise, at least. And even if you're not an expert PPC person, this will work right away, because again, very little competition. So anyway, I'm going to tell you how to basically do a wholesale business here at a high level. Then more importantly, how to promote it specifically with PPC, because I'm a PPC expert here. And this channel is about PPC, and what you could expect to make from it, and what kind of works and what doesn't, and some general tips and tricks that I've seen personally other people doing this, clients I've talked to, where you could do this for yourself anytime. So anyway, with all that said, this is often a much better opportunity than doing retail, as there are very few people, if any, doing it in most markets. If you search for laptop batteries, wholesale, on Google, like I said before, there's sometimes the Chinese government, as far as I know, is subsidizing people to go direct to consumer in the U.S. And but their websites are crap. No offense to the Chinese here, but respectively, it's a communist country still, and that one of their strong suits are advertising. And advertising there is cheap, and there's no competition. Whereas us in the U.S., assuming that I'm talking. This could be, definitely applied anywhere, but it's so cutthroat in the U.S. that we understand how to out-compete them, like, without even trying. people that are looking to buy wholesale, they look for us. And they look for us because everybody at some point, generally, their supplier screws up or they need it back up because the worst number in business is one. And you just position yourself on Google when they're looking for it, and you have a turnkey way to make money, of which you could pretty much pay, what I found, 10 to 50 bucks somewhere to open a new wholesale account with a company. You may not be their top, you may not have, you'll sell 10,000 units in one shot to that person, but you start out, you get your foot in with a small order, or you're just the backup, and you put your work in to show that you're trustworthy and reliable, because nobody's going to bet your entire business on you right away. But to open the account so inexpensive that it's fine to do that, and then you build up where you can sell 10,000 units of different products to that person, and all it took was picking up their phone. Yes, Jerry, and tell your shipping guy to ship it out. You get yourself a warehouse in a cheap state where warehouse space is extremely inexpensive, so that doesn't even have to be a cost, and you go to town with it. So like I said, I've seen this done in laptop batteries, a certain specialized paint. I can't tell you the paint because I'd give away the market. Storm shutters. Respectively, all these things are high volume niches where there's a lot of product being a large market, but respectively, a lot of it can be just like no name, if you will. People want to tack on their brand name to it. But respectively, when people do that, by the way, they don't even have their unique designs. They go to Alibaba, if you didn't know already. They ask the manufacturer who they're dealing with to slap on their logo, and it's the same design that a bunch of other companies have. So you can do that for people. Not everybody wants to do that, but you could slap on a logo on something and serve that need too, or at least if that you think is what the China's edge is to get the wholesale order is, you can obviously do that. But respectively, it's stuff that you don't buy strictly on being on the brand name alone, is my point. Now you definitely can and want to create a brand name. Larry's laptop batteries, so that people get to trust you and can refer you. You definitely need to do that. But there's no brand of laptop battery that just absolutely dominates the market that people want to beeline to already. So it's a way that I could, if I'm entering the market, can actually dominate it. And that is my goal. So if I'm going to pick any, why don't I pick that one? I'm also going to pick to see if anybody, I'm going to just Google laptop batteries, wholesalers, and I'm going to see what I find. And I'm looking for a bunch of crappy websites. I'm going to contact them. I'm going to see how fast they respond, all of that stuff, and not just pick any old niche. But anyway, these are 3 working niches to give you an idea of how well it can work, of which, yeah, you're paying 10 to 50 bucks to have somebody open up an account with you, i.e. either buy from you now or later at some point, or intending to buy from you at some point. So it's really, really, profitable, not so much right away like a regular end consumer campaign would be where you're selling individual products, but long term after you built those accounts up, like I said. So anyway, that's the general nuts and bolts of the wholesale business as far as I understand it, and using PPC to find the people who want to buy in bulk. Now, why would somebody buy from you versus Alibaba or AliExpress specifically? So I mentioned, yes, you have an edge, just because, even if they could get it cheaper at China Direct, people are willing to pay a premium for a number of different reasons. So don't think that the only way you can make this work is if you're bringing the product directly, like in person to somebody, or something like that. There's I could tell you also I've worked with hundreds of clients. I understand how they order, stock issues, what they like, what they don't like. So this is all just coming from what I've personally seen here. The first on the list of the 7 things that I could think of, and there's more, this is just the ones I thought of at the top of my head here, less shipping cost, or less cost shipping. So basically, if you're going to order from Amazon or Alibaba, the shipping cost to get it here to the US is going to be expensive. Obviously, you have to buy from China because, and by the way, if this wasn't known, all you're doing is buying from China, and then instead of the person who needs to buy, the retailer needs to buy from Alibaba, they're just buying from you. So you're literally the middleman or middlewoman, if you want to call it that. if you buy in bigger bulk, you could save on the shipping, and you obviously could save on the per unit cost, which is both where your margins come from, a lot of, it doesn't have to be completely. And then you ship it to the end consumer, and then, because, they're buying it in smaller amounts, but when it's in smaller amounts, it's closer, the whole economics of it work better in that regard. Fault tolerance. So, you're generally, as I found, if you're going to do this business, as I've seen other people do it, you're going to start as a backup. One is, like I said, the worst number in business. Having one supplier is absolutely sucks. You need 2, 3, 4 alternate suppliers of what you sell because people go out of stock. Not only that, nobody trusts anybody in terms of these suppliers, particularly ones in other countries, i.e. China, whatever, because they have lots of customers. They don't give a crap if you're pissed off, and they try. I'm not trying to have China attack me here, but they play all kinds of games. Because what could you do to them? If they commit some fraud on you, what are you going to do? Nothing. So, and realistically, this is kind of, they would rather make short-term money than long-term money in too many cases. So they want a backup. You can be the backup. Like I said, a lot of times, maybe you don't get the order right away. You get it eventually. They like it. You're basically seducing them with the little bit that they do buy from you as a backup. So you're just cheaper, easier, better, all of these other things I'm mentioning here. The third thing is higher trust. Of course, like I just was tapping into there before, you're dealing. If someone in China screws you over, you have no legal recourse, respectively or basically. And they also, people trust people like them. So if you're a white male, of course a white male is going to trust you more. This is the reality. And so they would want to deal with you. Just like the Chinese are going to want to deal with the Chinese, they're not going to deal with an American, nor do they. So you have that edge. Faster service. So respectively, you'll be able to respond quicker. Having a phone number that they could call and immediately get through to you being the expert in the products you sell, way better than having to go through and send your Chinese supplier an email to ask them questions. And they're not online until the next day, their time. Way bigger of a factor than you think here. For people that are busy, successful business owners don't have time. If you could save them time alone in ordering it so they don't have to mess around, waiting, go through 2 or 3 emails, they would do it on that reason alone and pay a premium for that reason alone. All these things add up to where your premium comes from. 10% margin for what, just mark up the product by 10%, selling in bulk, very easy to do with these. If not, you can do more depending on what niche it is, as I found. Better service in English. So the fact that, like I said, you want to pick a narrowed down niche, just understand about laptop batteries, about the different types of batteries and the voltages and materials and the fault rates. Get to where they can ask you questions about this stuff, like, and should I buy one with 35 watts or 45, and be able to answer that question. It's obviously, you could become an expert in that in a week of studying it if you are proficient enough to where that person would, you'd think you were pretty fancy for doing that. But more so, you're doing it in English. So a lot of times in China and Alibaba and all that, they can't do phone at all. So they're stuck doing email or chat. Even that, even if it's somebody that has good English there, it's still not as good as somebody who understands the culture. And so it's in English, and you can actually have experience, as I found, because I've been on the other side of this. I've done e-commerce as well, retail. And if you deal with the company rep at those companies in China, these are not product experts. It's just like in our PPC management field that I'm in. You're dealing with account manager most places that are other firms. And that person's not a PPC expert. So you're playing a game of telephone with that person. So nobody wants that, nor does it provide good results or ideal or what you would think. Stuff gets lost in translation. You can't tell a non-expert to tell something to somebody else with something getting screwed up half the time anyway, as you can imagine. So you're dealing with directly the expert. They can speak in English, they understand slang, all so much better, to where you could do phone. What I've seen other people do too, do like a custom web portal. So instead of having to, do WeChat or something with a Google, or a Chinese supplier, create yourself a little website so somebody that wants to order again, you've got all their information saved. They could just text you, reorder, done. That saves them time. And create a custom website for ordering from you and for what you need. It's just another way just so that you lock yourself in, so that when they try you for the first time, they stay with you and want to use you and just make you the primary person they deal with. And then of course you get an account manager. Now I just vilified account manager. So when I say account manager, an account manager who is knowledgeable, which that's a very, very important factor. So they're going to get an account manager. You're just not going to, at least if you want to make this very successful, if you do give them to somebody else as you get bigger, just make sure you train that person so they can provide basic level customer service and technical knowledge and service. Like if you call a bigger electronic supply company like Mauser, I used to buy components from them, or DigiKey, they would let you get an engineer on the phone. That's the kind of service you want to provide here. 6, faster shipping time. So basically, they can, if you, particularly as you get bigger, you can do warehouses on East Coast and West Coast, and you can get stuff to people, generally speaking, if they're an emergency, in one day. Versus the fastest you're going to get it from China, even if you have something small enough to ship via air without it costing too much, which doesn't take much. They really can't ship much via air unless it's tiny little components for it to be worth it like that. You're still going to have to wait 2 days, and that's where you're paying astronomical amounts of money. So just the fact that they're in a bind and you being able to help them in that, you're going to be in the running to order some stuff from you no matter what, just for that reason alone. And then better QA. So this is, I'd say out of everything I just mentioned here, QA is the biggest thing of all. I've heard all kinds of stories from both clients and different podcasts and stuff, where with the game that these Chinese often do is you'll order from them, everything seems great. Suddenly, they'll start to sneak in a little bit subpar quality stuff. Not to say, and I'm not being racist here, anybody could do this. Don't trust, frankly, anybody. Trust or verify, you got to do QA of your own products. But if you could get to the point where somebody doesn't have to QA your products as they ship them to you, like plug them in, test the voltage, whatever that needs to be done, you're saving them you're outsourcing the QA part of you're saving them money, time, aggravation, but more so, you get you spend all this money to get a product shipped from China, which you probably want to order a lot, because if you don't order a lot, the shipping cost is much higher. You get, 250 units of this item, and the quality isn't what it was initially, what you agreed on. They know it's too much trouble to return, and now they got, a little bit more money from you. This is very common. And if you don't have sophisticated tracking or testing methods, they can reduce the quality of the plastic like 5% to where it's just 5% less strong, and you won't know unless you really are on top of it. Particularly that QA firms that are in China at the factory itself are almost like a needed thing for a lot of markets because of this. So you're going to order, and you're going to be a master of your niche. You're going to understand these little tricks so that you can add that value to what you're doing, to the point where they know if they order from you, they're going to get what they paid for, and they're not going to get something that when you ship it to your customer, now you've got a complaint, now you've got 2 complaints, oh crap, now I got to do a recall, now you've lost a crap load of money. And that does happen a lot. So you're going to be the ethical, trusted person who doesn't just forward goods. Your job is to provide good customer service, and on-time customer service, but then shipping stuff in which you verify that the crap isn't crap before they get it, and therefore it goes out the door there. So Anyway, you'll get a lot of people looking for a backup. You do these things, you're going to become eventually the default, not always, but quite a few times. That's kind of how this business works if you get into it, as far as I've seen, and what I would be gunning for. Like I said, China is already trying to muscle in on this. Their websites aren't very good, and they can't compete on you with all these things. So if you see somebody in China trying to do this at a factory, showing up in Google for terms like bulk laptop batteries for sale, they can't compete with you anyway. So don't let that stop you necessarily. Now, so what do you need to do to get in business? I pretty much already spelled it out, but you get yourself a wholesale account and a warehouse in a cheap state where it basically costs nothing to store quantity of goods. And maybe you start out in your garage, but you move to a warehouse. In Detroit, where the warehouse space is basically almost free, you could, if you wanted to, not to say I would recommend that, but you get the idea here. All kinds of warehouse space that's not used for anything, or very, very cheap. You get yourself a wholesale account. Part of what people are paying for you for is, if you want to sell, let's say, LED grow lights for horticulture purposes, you can go and order for a sample from each provider, which sell a somewhat similar item. I know because I've worked in that market, indoor grow lights and stuff like that before, at for a period of time as a manager there of the company. And you can go ahead and QA every sample and just find out which ones are quality for the money and which ones are not, and compare the cost per quality and help. It's another thing you can add to in terms of the value you're delivering to demand what you're marking up the products for. And so what you find is good, that's what you order from. In terms of, so there's so many ways to justify a higher price. 10% being very, very easy to do in terms of what they're paying, but the fact that you're going to be able to get it cheaper anyway because you're ordering in bulk and selling it to multiple people here instead of them going directly to China, you could potentially mark it up 20, 30, 40% as is possible. I've seen somebody do before. So it's up to you how much value you're going to add. Are you going to provide phone service, customer service? Are you going to do the hard negotiation? Are you going to do heavy research into the market so you could test, all the players in China for that market, and you've tested them all? And are you going to provide a QA service so that they don't have to do it on their end, which saves them money, and therefore you can mark up that whatever it costs you to do it, which is you're more efficient at it, so you should do it, and then tack on a premium that way. How far do you want to go with this? Once you have a product to sell, you advertise your products, which you're mastering in one category, like the storm shutters, whatever. So, and advertise what you have, like we talked about. Faster, more trustworthy, dedicated, knowledgeable engineer on staff / account manager who could answer questions about what you need to order in real time. Of which is in the US, not China, and then, for only a 10% premium basically on top of what you would have to pay to get it from China anyway, which is a fair price. Most people will think that's fair, perfectly fair. You get those advantages, maybe not all, but who cares? You don't need every single person. And so you advertise, basically, then all you have to do if you were doing storm shutters, you would bid on Google Ads, storm shutters bulk, storm shutters wholesale, storm shutters wholesalers, storm shutters distributors, store sellers US suppliers, or insert the name of your country if it's not US here, if it's Holland or France or whatever. And, okay, respectively, that's basically all you do. You add those terms before, after your niche, and with that, I've mentioned when I build campaigns and other videos, I use permutations. So these keywords here, plus the name of your products, you got to try it forward, backwards, in the middle, and use an online permutation generator to find all the possible keywords that, in terms of reordering them and I would also use a thesaurus to find other ways people describe what you sell, and then use SpyFood potentially to see if there is a competitor out there that ranks organically. What they're using is their meta tags. Maybe they know something about keywords that people are searching for to find them that you don't. Google Keyword Tool, Uber Suggest is another tool. Just really exhaust all the opportunities. But if you didn't do all that, you could just go with what I gave you here, which is a pretty good, you're getting most of it already anyway, and then you just have your ad show up there and you send them to a landing page which talks about all. If you're not offering all of it, then you don't do all of it, but if you do, just talk about what I talked about here, because this is pretty much as I found what people want. If they're going to want a premium supplier, it's going to solve a lot of headaches for them. Those are the main pain points. You'll find some others along the way, because I'm not an expert in wholesaling, because this is not what I do, but in general, okay, this is enough to where you should be able to be profitable right out the gate for you without having to do anything else, which is what I try to do on these videos. I give you a turnkey way to at least get started, take the money from what I gave you, add a spend to it, and keep making more. And you absolutely should do that with any of my ideas anyway. I couldn't give an idea that works for everybody. I can give one that works for most people and make some money, and then you make more by thinking outside the box and adding to what I give you here. But as I mentioned, very, very common, $10 to $50 to have somebody search for wholesale storm shutters, find your ad that says wholesale storm shutters, which you should have an ad group for every keyword, so you can literally tell them, because there's only so many profitable searches that are looking for a wholesaler, so that you get every possible one you can clicking on your ad, and then you take them to a page saying that you have all the most common designs. You test, you QA these, they're ready to go at an open notice on that landing page. And if you want to talk to somebody, talk to the owner, so you could get something potentially out today, or just get information on having a second supplier ready. Call me. Name is Jake. You don't have to seem like, in fact, you don't want to seem like a huge company, because I can tell you it's going to be more appealing. You sound like you're not trying to treat them as a number than if you were. But that's in general the strategy, wrapped up in a box with a nice little bow on the top that you can use to make money wholesaling. So obviously, like I said, if you're making this work, I'd go and do data entry and find out all the people that do sell retail what I have. This is what the Chinese wholesalers do. They email you, but then you're going to email them and say, well, you got to talk about these things, which they get emails from people from India and China all the time, but they don't say this stuff. This is your edge. So anyway, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you do this, go ahead and let me know. I'd be interested to hear your success stories with it. I have a ton of other videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. If you'd like to make a lot of money with PPC, see what else that I have in store, you should check out my channel. Watch some of the other videos I got, if this is the first one you've only watched so far. I have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build PPC campaigns, the way that I build them for our clients here, in which I guarantee the results. If you'd like to see information along those kind of lines, you can find it there. If you have any questions or comments, anything you think I should have covered here or doesn't make sense, leave me a comment down below. I get back to everybody who leaves me a comment on this channel personally within a day or two. But with all that said, hope you get out there and do this. If you were thinking about it, you definitely should go out there and actually do it. Figure out and see for yourself how much potential it has. Appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I will see you there on the next video comes out on this channel in another day or two.